Hey, I'm Mike with the Florida Public Archaeology Network, and for this video we're going to do the top 5 archaeological sites that I recommend that you go visit that you can actually hike at here in Northwest Florida. Now, there are so many different historic and archaeological sites that you can visit here in this region of Northwest Florida, but for the criteria for this video, I've whittled it down to these 5. And the criteria for these sites is that number 1, that they are archaeological sites that have been investigated by professional archaeologists. Number 2, they're sites that you can actually get to pretty easily and that have some type of interpretation when you get there, whether it's a museum exhibit or some signage. And number 3, of course, because of this video series, it's really important that these sites have opportunities for hiking. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started in the top 5 sites to visit, starting with number 5. So number 5 for me definitely has to be the Colonial Archaeological Trail that you can visit in downtown Pensacola in Escambia County. The Pensacola Colonial Archaeological Trail is great because it's different archaeological sites that date from the colonial period of Pensacola. The area that is the heart of downtown Pensacola today was founded by the Spanish in the 1750s when they constructed a fort called Fort San Miguel. The best place to start for this trail is definitely the commanding officer's compound, and from there you can actually visit many different sites and you can see exposed features from brick features to earthen fortifications that are still on Pensacola's downtown landscape to this very day. And another great thing about walking around on this hiking tour of different colonial archaeological sites is the fact that you can visit so many different restaurants and shops and other museums if you get a little bit tired along the way. That brings us to number 4 on my list of sites to visit, is one of my favorite areas to visit, period, and that has to be Gulf Islands National Seashore, Fort Pickens area. Now, Gulf Islands National Seashore has a lot of different areas that you can visit, but for me, the best one to go to is really Fort Pickens because it's right on a barrier island. And of course, probably the most prominent physical feature on the landscape there is the historic Fort Pickens that was constructed in the year 1834. Now, there's many other things to see while you're in the Fort Pickens area, not just Fort Pickens itself. There's later gun emplacements and batteries that were constructed during World War I and World War II that you can actually experience when you're on site. They also have a visitor center, and they have plenty of opportunities at hiking. And for me, you haven't truly hiked in Florida if you have not done it on our sugary white sand beaches. And there's, again, because it's a barrier island, there's plenty of opportunities to do that. Now, number 3 on my top 5 list has to be the site of Arcadia Mill. Arcadia Mill archaeological site is located in Milton, Florida in Santa Rosa County. And it was the site of the very first industrial water-powered mill in Northwest Florida. So it dates from the early 1800s right up until the beginning of the American Civil War. Now, there's so much you can do at Arcadia Mill archaeological site. They have a visitor center with wonderful exhibits. They also have some great programs, and they even have a historic house that you can visit when you're there as well. But for our purposes, it's the fact that they have over 30 acres of wooded space with trails, many of which have boardwalks and signage that tell you what you're looking at. Also, they have lots of different areas where you can actually see the archaeological features exposed on the ground. One of the wonderful things that the staff at Arcadia Mill has done has really tried to tell the story of most of the people who actually lived at Arcadia, who were enslaved African Americans, both men and women and children who lived and worked on site at that location. So it's a great place to learn about that history that's so important to not only our area, Northwest Florida, but the entire country. Now, number 2 of my top 5 sites that you must visit, we're going to have to go much further to the east into the Apalachicola National Forest at a site called Prospect Bluff. Now, there's a lot of history at the site of Prospect Bluff, but probably what's most significant about that particular site is the fact that at one time it had the largest free all-black settlement in what's now the continental United States. Now, following the War of 1812, the British actually built a fortification at the site of Prospect Bluff, and it was manned by formerly enslaved men and their families who had escaped slavery and joined the British Army during the War of 1812. And not only did these now free African American men and women and children live at the site, but many indigenous people who lived in the area and intermarried in those families did as well. Now, this fort was known as the Americans as Negro Fort, and unfortunately it was eventually destroyed by the Navy and Army when Andrew Jackson sent an expedition to destroy the fort. Several hundred of these African Americans who lived at the site unfortunately perished, but many of them actually did survive and were able to escape. And so while it's a very sad story, it's also a story of resilience, especially for the many descendants who still live in Florida. Now, the site of Prospect Bluff has many different trails as well as outdoor exhibits and signage that will tell you that full story. And now finally, for my #1 site that I would recommend, I have to admit, I picked this site to be #1 probably because of my own bias, because it's a site that I used to work at, and that is a site in downtown Fort Walton Beach in Okaloosa County called the Fort Walton Temple Mound, or what's more popularly known as the Indian Temple Mound Museum. Now, the Fort Walton Temple Mound is not only an archaeological site, but it's a national historical landmark. And it was constructed by the Native Americans who lived in that area in 800 CE. And they lived there up until around probably 15 or 1600. The mound is original and it's incredible, and it's been excavated several times, and you can actually take stairs up to the top of the mound to see the replica of the temple structure on top of the mound today. But there's also other museums on that location, including the Indian Temple Mound Museum, where you can see many artifacts that were recovered not only from the Fort Walton Temple Mound and other mounds in the general vicinity, but in the local area as well. And one another nice thing about the Fort Walton Temple Mound is that because it's located in downtown Fort Walton Beach, right on Main Street off US Highway 98, there's lots of little shops and boutiques and restaurants that you can go visit as well. And if you hike just across the street to a park called Brooks Landing, you can visit another Native American site that is a shellman. So there is some urban hiking there that you can do. Hope you enjoyed this video of the top 5 sites that I would recommend that you all visit in Northwest Florida. Of course, there's so many different sites that we have out there that it was really hard for me to pick just 5. So if you have sites that you think I should have included, please feel free to put that down in the comments below. And I'll also be sure to, in the description of this video, put a link to our Destination Archaeology website with an interactive map with not only many other different archaeological sites you can visit here in Northwest Florida, but throughout the entire state. I hope you'll go out and visit these archaeological sites as well as the many others that we have out here, not only in Northwest Florida, but throughout the entire state. But remember, when you're out there hiking, take only photos, leave only footprints, and I'll see you next time when we explore some of our amazing local archaeology.